Go.
Okay.
All right, so my name is Bastiaan van der Vlist. I make music under the name Stan Forebee. And I used to be known as a different name called Beats of Reen. That's a different alias. But I'm Stan Forebee now, so people call me Stan. So you can call me Stan too.
Okay. And like, when did you begin recording lo-fi pieces, and what made you begin in the first place?
I started making beats when I was 15, I think. I lived in a tiny village in the Netherlands, where I'm from originally. And I had a friend moved to my home village. I lived in one of those typical Dutch villages with clogs and green fields everywhere and farmers and stuff. So there was nothing musically going on. So then at some point, someone moved to my home village, and he was a rapper. And so I started making beats for him initially. And I developed my craft over the years. And I was always into hip hop and jazz. So at some point, I think in 2013, I released an album called Jazz Sessions, which was the first hip hop jazz album that I released, which was before the whole lo-fi scene came up. And so when that happened, I think the lo-fi scene must have grown over the last, what is it, like 5-6 years or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my music naturally tied into the lo-fi scene. So I was already making music before that, and then I basically naturally got into the lo-fi scene.
Okay. Yeah, because when we listen to your tracks, it's very peaceful, chill. And what do you have in mind when you do these tracks? What is your definition of chill? And how are you able to perfectly express this feeling?
So do you know pianist Bill Evans?
Pianist? No.
So there's one jazz pianist called Bill Evans, and he has been a big influence on my music. And that first album, Jazz Session, sorry, I sampled his piano songs. And for me, he was the perfect blend between jazzy, and there was a calm and peaceful element to his music that I felt really drawn into. And so I made a crossover from just making hip hop beats to discovering Bill Evans specifically, and then slowly making beats that were purely instrumental and had the same calm and chill atmosphere as his music. So I think he was a really important jazz musician for me, a big inspiration. So when I think of chill, I automatically think of Bill Evans. So that's one part. And I think the chill vibe reflects my personality as well. As I'm a very calm and peaceful person. So I think I look for playing chords on the piano that resemble that same atmosphere, so to say. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, and in general, how do you like find your inspiration? How do you think of something that you say like it could work, or I have to do something with it? You know?
Yeah, so sometimes it can be a really interesting I start playing piano and something really interesting comes up, and I think like, oh, this is a very cool chord progression to start working with. Or what I sometimes do is just listen to old jazz records, and you can have like 1 second of something that grabs you straight away. It's really difficult to explain, but sometimes, especially with the art of sampling, there's sometimes you only have to have 1 second of interesting material, and something can sound very it's basically unexplainable, but you can feel really drawn to that specific sound, and then you can start playing around with building a full palette of colors and sounds and stuff. But usually I just start playing piano, and then I just improvise, and sometimes I hear myself playing a set of piano chords that I really like, and I'll compose the piece of music around those chords basically, and then I write melody on top. So I usually start with the piano chords. Piano is really important. If there was no piano for me, I would not make music at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so your basic instruments or devices to work with are piano and computer.
Yeah, and I also play guitar a little bit, but I need to practice a lot. I would say piano is my main instrument. And I work with, in case you wanted to know, I work with Fruity Loops, so FL Studio. And I work with Ableton to compose music. And I sometimes use Pro Tools to mix.
Okay, so those are logiciels, programs from a computer to mix. Okay.
Yeah, so I would use Pro Tools for mixing and Ableton and FL Studio for composing.
And piano was your first instrument when you were younger?
Yes. My father taught me to play piano at the age of 3. So I was still very young back then. I hated it, and now I'm thankful for it.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Okay, and also, do you like work alone to create pieces, or do you work like with other people in general? Or maybe like your preference to...
Do you mean collaborate with people, or
Yeah.
when I? Yeah, mainly myself. Yeah, I do collaborate sometimes, but not often, and that's not intentionally. I'm very all the ideas live in my head, and sometimes it's easy to pass on like a drum loop or some chords to another musician, but mainly when I start playing the piano, I can hear the full composition in my head already, so then I want to make it myself too. So that can be difficult with working together with other musicians. But for example, when I have a specific guitar part in mind, or like a vocal layer that I want to write, then I usually collaborate with people, because I can't sing or play guitar really well myself. So that's usually why I work together with other people. But it's mainly, my collaborations are usually with people that play instruments, so not really with other producers as much.
Okay.
Because then you have to share the same you have to share the musical ideas, and sometimes they conflict, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said that when you began, you worked with a rap musician, so you had to produce beats for someone else, and was it different, or?
So when, sorry?
At the beginning, you had to produce beats for someone else?
Yeah, that was very different because when you create instrumental music, there's more freedom. And with the rapper specifically, you have this 16 bars and 8 bars for the chorus. So I had to stick to the structure. And with my instrumental music, I don't have to think about any structure. I do still make a structure, but it's whatever I want to make. And for a hip hop beat, that was more, yeah, bound to specific structure. So that gave me less freedom.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I have a question about structure. Lofi is all about repeating beats. So how do you know that you have to repeat at this certain point and not another point? And I mean, it's very flowy, wavy. It's a style that is very wavy. So how do you know? How do you work with this feeling?
I think you just feel it. I listened to a lot of Jay Dilla beats when I was younger. I still do. But he creates loops of like one bar and repeats it for 3 minutes long, and it's still good. So you have to make that, if you want to do that, you have to make that one bar really good. And then you can repeat it. But it's difficult to really understand it myself too. I just make music, and sometimes I'm like, oh, this loop sounds really good. What if I loop the same bit? And then you just experiment, and sometimes you have a perfect loop, and sometimes you really have to write a composition that goes in different directions and stuff. But sometimes you can be very happy with one loop. So it depends.
Okay.
And also, like, when do you know after doing all that stuff that your work is finished, that you cannot add anything more? Or like, is it just about the feeling still, or is it something else that tells you like I'm done with it, you know?
This is a psychological complex that I've been struggling with for years and years and years and years, because I've always been doing this cycle, and there's never an end point. So I'm such a perfectionist in that sense. I can now, but I learned it over 10 years. I've been making music for almost 15 years now. And only in the last 5 years, I learned to actually finish a song. I worked for, I made an album called Full Circle on my former alias. And I almost finished all the tracks within 4 months. And the album was finally finished after 4 years. And that's only because of this loop.
Okay.
But now I try to make decisions a bit quicker. So I can, but I think this is a journey that you have to go through yourself, and it's really about learning. But you don't really know. You don't really know when a song is finished, but sometimes you have to decide, okay, I'm not going to add anything more now. This is just what it is. And you have to deal with the fact that you can't add anything more. You just have to put it away and then leave it. But that's really difficult to do that. But yeah, I can do it now. So I'm happy with myself now.
Wow. Yes, so in general, when people listen to lo-fi, like me when I was a student, I search on the search bar lo-fi, and I found random pieces, but I never checked the name of the artist. So music producers aren't well known in this field. So how do you feel about that? About the fact of that you are anonymous, anonyme, that you are you don't your name doesn't stand out to compared to other artists. So what do you feel about that?
So I didn't start making lo-fi beats because the lo-fi beat market became big in the last few years. So I've always been making music. So I wasn't. I didn't have to follow the market. So this is important because I just make music that I like personally, and so for me, it's more about making the music more personal and interesting. And I always want to have people that listen that they can hear my musical identity in it. And if I end up like in a big mix of lo-fi music, that's fine. And I hope that people will listen to this track and think, hey, this sounds cool, or like this sounds a bit more specific than other tracks, or there's something that interests me, and then they'll look up my name. If they don't, that's fine too. They'll still hear the music, because I also know that from a big lo-fi playlist, the best thing for you and me as a listener is just to have the whole playlist going and you can just chill, which is the best way to listen to lo-fi from my perspective. So I try to make lo-fi as interesting as possible, so you'll actually look up my name. And if you don't, that's fine too.
Just like for curiosity, did you have like some other people contacting you the way we did, or not? Like
as an interview?
Yeah, an interview, just like to know more about you, or like you saw like a rise in like your followers. I don't know, maybe something like this.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do have some interviews over a few times a year, I think. Yeah, I would say a few times a year.
Okay.
And it's always fun.
Yeah.
So, do you have some works that are your favorites that this one is perfect, this one?
My personal
really,
favorite tracks that I made?
Yes.
Oh, man. So let me have a look. I've got a few favorites. I just don't know them from the top of my head. But there's a few tracks that I really like myself. I'm really proud of Kensington, which is a track released in 2018 on Chill Hop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really proud of Possums and Popcorn, which is there's more of a personal story behind it, because I wrote the beat after I proposed to my wife. So it's very personally connected. Yeah, so that's one. And I really love Sunrise on Southey Street. What else? There's a few other beats, but those three Cory Mako. There's a track that came out this year called Cory Mako with Joe Elise, a singer from New Zealand. And that's also a personal favorite, because it's not a standard lo-fi beat. It's more song structure. So yeah.
Yeah, you have to find the title to your tracks. Are there particular from a moment, like you said, Sunday morning, or yes, you have to choose your title. So how do you do that?
So the tracks I just named, Kensington was made in Kensington, in Melbourne. There's a suburb called Kensington where I lived.
Okay.
And then the Possums and Popcorn is actually, we we bought a bag of popcorn and went to the park on the day that I proposed for my wife. And the moment I started getting serious about this proposal, we didn't see that behind the tree at night, possums came around the tree to try and grab the popcorn out of the bag. So that's why the title is Possums and Popcorn. So you know, these are all like personal, mostly personal experiences, and there's also quite a few tracks that have names to it from the physical locations where I made the music. So yeah, Kensington and Sunrise from, what is it? Man, I had a track Sunset and Sunrise. Sunrise from Southey Street is a track that I made when I lived on Southey Street and I saw the sunset or the sunrise, and I made the track the day after or something like that. So it's usually, you know, something like that. Okay. It's always a physical reference or an experience.
Yeah, you have sung for the sun
So
too.
location.
Sorry?
You made song for the sun too. No? On like chill hop, I can.
You just, sorry, you just glitched.
Oh, Song for the Sun.
Song for the Sun. Yeah, so I've got Sunrise on Southey Street. I've got Song for the Sun. And then on the winter chill hop compilation, I had Snowland Sunset.
So
confusing.
Locations, moments inspires you?
Yeah, it's mostly experiences that I think about when I make the music. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so also like with the actual contest, there is like COVID and all. Did the pandemic impact your way of working, like maybe in a good way or maybe in a bad way? I don't know.
Good question. I would say the first few months I was really happy that the whole world came to a stop. It's just like when it's snowing and you're walking outside and you hear your footsteps in the snow, but the world outside is really quiet. It's dampened down because of the snow and the sound absorbing. And that's how I felt with the lockdown and COVID. So I would say for the first few months that the lockdown was in place, which was March 2020, I think, in Melbourne. Yeah, I felt really relieved, and I started making more music. And then over time, I think it slowed down because, you know, the first few months you still have this adrenaline, or like something feels different about the world. So I felt really like I had to stay inside myself. I couldn't go out of my home in Melbourne without a reason. Similar to France, right? You had to have paper.
You had to like write a sheet and
yeah. So I felt really comfortable at home making music, and yeah, after a few months, that new feeling started going away, and I started getting a bit bored. And you know, when less things happen outside of your home in the world, there's less inspiration coming in as well. So I didn't have any new ideas to write for. So I felt a bit clueless, basically. So yeah, first few months all great, and then suddenly, well, it declined over the next few months. And but you know, after a year or so, because it's in May 2021 now, I think all musicians around me as well, they finally will deal with the whole situation, and then they'll find a new routine and a new way to live, and then you can sort of get inspired again, and so that's good. So I'm in a good situation now, but I would say 6 months ago I felt really empty, no inspiration at all. So yeah, it did impact me a lot.
Okay. So do you view yourself as an artist, and do you ever think about your contribution to music, to art, and specifically to lo-fi?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sorry, what was the question again?
Do you think about your impact, your contribution to music in general? Sometimes I do, but not very often, to be honest. I know that I think the moments when I think about impact, my impact as a musician, is when I get emails from fans or people that like my music. That puts it in perspective, because I'm a one-man band sitting in one room, making all the music and sending it to the world through the internet. I'm not performing live or anything like that. I'm not a band. So it's people writing me emails about what the music means for them is what makes me think about impacting the music. And yeah, when people tell you how much it means to them, that's really what you're doing it for, and that's all I can ever wish for, actually. Yeah.
And on a more like economic aspect, do you do you win enough with only the music stuff, or do you do another work on the side to like tie the months quite well in a way?
When the lo-fi market wasn't big yet, I would make beats and compose music for film at the same time as a side business to finance my own stuff and pay the rent. And I think now I'm working full-time music, so I can live off both the royalties and Spotify and stuff. And I also have some side projects outside of the music I make that help me live off my music. Because I'm just making music for myself, and then there's some, every now and then there are like clients, they ask you for a specific, it could be music for film or for a company, all these commercial activities outside of, but it also, it always comes from the music that you release on Spotify. Then the companies really, they get drawn to that music, and then they approach you to like, oh, look, you want to do something for us, and that, they have a good budget, so both combined. Yeah, I can happily say that I'm living off the music at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, and that's nice.
But without lo-fi, I wouldn't be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe how do you explain the ways of lo-fi? Because you were part of the beginning, so how do you explain that a lot of artists had the same idea of doing this genre, and how a lot of people like this sound?
Yeah.
It's very recent.
Yeah, I think from a musician perspective, there's a lot of things to it. I think people get really love lo-fi music because it's not throwing things directly at you, like it's not in your face type of music. And the whole concept of listening to music to accompany you while studying and doing all these sorts of side activities, that really came up in the last few years out of nowhere. And then COVID really pushed that too, because everyone had to stay at home, so that gave it a real big boost. So I think people really love it because it's not taking up 100% of your attention. And because it's chill and laid back, and it has these very soothing atmospheres and textures to it. And with lo-fi, you often have like a bird singing in the background, or like the vinyl crackle, the very famous vinyl crackle thing. So these are all type sounds that are really soothing in a way. So I think that's why people really like it. And from a producer's perspective, I think for me it was a really small step, because I was just making jazz hip hop beats. I just had to do a slight change to make lo-fi beats. But I think yeah, a lot of producers really liked the sound. And then also there's a group of producers that came to make lo-fi music because they saw that the industry was growing and the market was becoming bigger. So they also knew that there's a piece of the pie to take in the lo-fi market. So they started making lo-fi music. So there's a group of producers where I'm from. I'm a part of that group that was already like making music in the same corner of the market. And then all types of other people that really liked what was happening and what was growing. So they came into it and started making lo-fi too. And now it's a big market. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it was perfect answer.
Cool.
And like also that might be one of the last question. When like you publish a song, a tune, I don't know how you call that, but you publish them on Chill Hop, Spotify, stuff like this. Are you like thankful to these platforms?
Yes.
Because they help you like share what you're doing without like having to do like really hard stuff to promote them in a way.
Yeah, so I would say Chill Up has opened up my musical career, and without them I wouldn't be where I am right now. And because they were so, I actually know the owner of Chill Up from back in the day. He's Dutch as well. Okay. And I knew from the start that he was a very professional, hardworking, punctual person who was really thinking for the artists and for me as an artist and other colleagues around me. That's one of the most important things, to know that you can trust on the business type people, because the business people are also in the same market, but they have a different perspective, because they also want to make money. So you really have to figure out the right people to work with and to release music with. And then when I started releasing music with Chill Hop, that basically gave my musical career a huge boost. And so I'm really thankful for that, definitely. And in the last year or so, I started to release music myself. But that was only possible because I had this big label that I started releasing music on. So that made my audience to grow, and so now these people that always listen to chill hop started listening to my music specifically, and now I have an audience that originates from the whole chill hop label. So they've been a huge part of my musical career. So if they wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here too.
Yeah, and well, like they do also like compilation in a way, like what's the name? Like Chill Hop Essential, like Winter 2020, Fall 2020. Do they ask you like, can I put this song in my album, or they just, or you ask them to put your songs in it?
So they have they work with a group of artists that they really like. So they sometimes they send me an invitation to submit the music to them, or sometimes I send music to the label, asking like, is this something that suits the chill hop label? You know, and I have a lot of music rejected by chill as well as other artists, because they're looking for a specific type of atmosphere and vibe to their sound. So sometimes it gets rejected and sometimes accepted, but yeah, they basically sometimes send me an invitation, and sometimes I just email them to ask like, hey, you've got a compilation coming up, can I submit? And then I can submit my music. So it depends every time.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's interesting actually, because we don't really know like the behind the scene kind of stuff, how like you get chosen.
Yeah, for sure. And every record label is different, and it's also about the network and the people you know, for sure, because especially now with the lo-fi market being so big, there's so many beat makers or producers wanting to send the big labels their music, because they know it's, you know, they have a lot of power. But yeah, to me, I didn't have to push myself to become part of the lo-fi industry, because I was already there. So I naturally knew the people that eventually started setting up the record label. So in a way, I was lucky, but in the other way, I also connected with people throughout the years, and that really helps with establishing the music career. But still, I wouldn't say I'm treated in a privileged way, because they still have that distance. So I still have to submit the music, and they'll still say, look, it doesn't fit the label, or it does.
Okay.
So I can't send them anything, and they'll accept it anyway. So yeah, but it depends. It depends on the label. But Chill Hop, for example, is very, very, very good on that end. So they give people a fair chance in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I'm done with the question. I don't know about you, Sholah.
Yes, me too.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I would. Thank you for everything, because I was searching like for artists, and Sholah did too, but like on another type of thing. And it's really hard to find someone, because at first I said something to a French artist, like 2 or 3 days before you, because I wanted to like diverse my research. And like even today he hasn't answered yet. So you know, it's like really hard to contact people sometimes when you don't know them. I'm really thankful, because you like answered directly, and it was a positive answer too. So yeah, that's very nice from you, and thank you about everything.
Yeah.
Cool, I really appreciate it, man. And yeah, it depends on the artist whether they have a management or not. And I've been making music for so long that I've also learned to manage my own stuff. So that's why I can see your emails, and I can decide if I reply on them. I always reply on emails anyway. But I also want to talk to people and connect with people and just talk about music. So yeah, I really enjoyed the interview myself too. So I hope it's helpful. If you have any other questions that come to mind, or when when you're putting the thing together, let me know. If you need anything else, we can just stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
Cool.
I'll be sending you like the mail also to the link to the blog. We might be doing that
Yeah.
in French at first, but we might have a translation for your part because it's like the minimum to do like it in English. I can translate quite easily, so should be done.
And
Like I don't
otherwise,
know
I'll
when,
use
but
Google Translate.
yeah, just paste that and copy it, and that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for everything, and have a good evening to you.
Thanks. I'm gonna have my Uber Eats now.
Okay, nice.
Cheers.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Have a lovely day. See ya.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.